Welcome to Anti-Fiction. This is a weekly nonfiction podcast where each week I, Christian Yates, am joined by two guest hosts to discuss stories based on a particular theme that I have chosen beforehand. My guest hosts this week are person who makes me travel for recording, Sammi Davis.
Hey.
And I didn't come up with a funny nickname for Mike Yates.
Yep.
So this is welcome to episode 8 of Anti-Fiction.
So many episodes.
This week the theme is aliens, which I am pretty excited for. I'm excited to see what you guys brought with you today. So I'll go ahead and get started, but before I do, quick shout out everybody that's listening. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Make sure you're leaving us a review on iTunes, right? They do reviews. I don't know. I don't use
Probably.
iTunes. I'm an Android user.
Yeah, I don't use Apple stuff.
Subscribe and review.
Yeah, so subscribe, review,
We've
like,
got
comment.
one Apple user here.
And you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Anti-Fiction-Cast. We put up, previews of each episode on the Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. It's good time.
Find us
We all
on
have
the
fun.
gram.
So this week we're doing aliens, and I will go ahead and get started. So, have you guys ever heard the story of Antonio Villas Boas?
Doesn't sound familiar.
This is
That's a name I think I'd remember.
right. So this is a story that it's not the one that popularized alien abduction stories in the United States, but it's one of the first full accounts of an alien abduction. So I found this while I was trying to find some kind of funny alien abduction story, and this is perfect because it's like the genesis of alien abductions, and also it's fucking ridiculous.
That phrase has come up a lot today. Genesis of.
Yeah, we were talking about Genesis on the way over. So I should say my info for this story, most of it comes from Brenda Densler's Lure of the Edge, which is a book that I read part of, and by part of I mean this story, and also the website Animalian, which I think is supposed to be a combination of anomaly and alien. Anomalian.
Onomalian?
Yeah, I don't know. So, Antonio Villas Boas, at the age of 23, was working as a farmer in Brazil. And at the time he was working he worked at night, so that way he could avoid the heat of the day. This is Brazil. It is October 16th, 1957, and he's out plowing in the fields near São Francisco de Sales when he saw what he described as a red star in the night sky. The star approached his position, growing in size until it became recognizable as a roughly circular or egg-shaped aerial craft with a red light at its front and a rotating dome on top. The craft began to descend and land in the field, extending 3 legs as it did so, and it's at that point that Boas decided, fuck that, I'm out of here. Which would be my reaction also, I feel like.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get abducted. But, so interestingly, this was not his first alien experience.
Oh.
Well, that's how he knew.
Right? 10 days earlier, on October 5th, Boas opened a window and he saw a bright light in the sky. And when he looked back sometime later, he noticed it had gotten closer. 9 days after that, on the 14th of October, he and his brother were tilling the fields when they saw a bright light 300 feet above them. It danced around, and as Boaz got closer, it zoomed around some 20 times before disappearing. So every time he moved a little bit closer to it, it would zoom further away from him until eventually it just went away altogether. But back to the night of October the 15th. Having seen the craft, Boaz decides to book it, and he tried to escape on his tractor, but then he discovered that the battery had died.
Bum, bum, bum.
And soon after he realized that, he was seized by a 5-foot-tall humanoid wearing gray coveralls and a helmet. 3 more joined the first, and they dragged Boaz into the craft. Their eyes, Boaz said, were small and blue, and they spoke in barks and yelps rather than like a recognizable language.
Is it like the Signs aliens? Because they look like dogs?
Right, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. Is
and
like,
when did
it's
this
like,
take place?
Yep. This is October 15th, 1957.
Okay, so he couldn't have stolen that from Signs. Okay,
He could not
checks
have.
out. It checks out.
So, once inside the craft, Boaz was stripped of his clothes and covered in a strange gel. He was led into a semicircular room through a doorway that had these strange red symbols on it. And he later claimed that he'd memorized these symbols based on the 3 seconds it took him to probably walk through a doorway. And he reproduced them for investigators. So that's something that's worth pointing out ahead of time. There are investigators who went in and investigated this case afterward, and that's going to come up in a minute. And it's people looked into UFO investigators. That's what I'm telling you. Like people were like, well, based on other sightings, like that. So the aliens, they took samples of blood from his chin, which reportedly left marks for 3 years after the event, and then left him alone in a third room for half an hour. During his stay there, gas was pumped into this room, which made Boaz violently ill. Here's where it gets weird. This is...
It hasn't gotten
Because it
weird
wasn't
yet?
yet.
It has not gotten weird
That jelly fluid stuff, that wasn't weird.
Yeah.
But this will be.
This is the part where I was like, this is the story I'm doing. Shortly after the gas was pumped into the room, another humanoid entered the room, except that this one appeared to be female, very attractive, and, as Boaz reluctantly admitted later, stark naked. She had platinum blonde hair, but her underarm and pubic hair were bright red. Boaz was strongly attracted to the woman, and the two had sex. Twice.
Naturally.
I mean, when dessert is good, you go back for seconds.
And when you're already naked, I guess.
Right. So Boaz noted that during intercourse, the female alien did not kiss him, but instead nipped at his chin, which I guess he found odd, but I'm like,
It's not going to stop him.
Right, it's not going to stop him. But like,
I'm not going to stop, but we're going to talk about this later.
It was weird that this alien didn't do a human thing. It was odd. He did talk about later, I didn't write it down, but that does remind me, he did talk about later, so the alien, while they were getting it on, made like these weird like guttural moans, which like he said gave him the distinct impression that he was with an animal. And that still didn't stop
How did
him.
you know?
Right?
How would you know that that means?
Well, sometimes when you're working those Brazilian farm fields, like you're out there plowing fields, and you're like,
And
damn
then
it,
all
I
of a
could
sudden
be
you're out
plowing
there
sheep.
plowing animals.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We're going to have to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this one.
It's fine. So after the deed was done, the woman seemed to tire of their union and a little bit relieved that their task was complete. And Boaz was kind of upset by that. And he said, quote, "That was what they wanted of me. A good stallion to improve their own stock. In the final count, that was all it was. Like a spurned lover." Anyway.
I was in love.
So as
And she broke
left,
my heart.
As she left, the humanoid smiled, pointed to her belly, then pointed to Boaz, and then pointed to the sky. Boaz took this to mean that the woman would come back to get him. Although a UFO researcher on the case later pointed out that she could have just as well have meant that she planned to return to her home planet to raise their child. Sure. Why not?
Sorry, I guess there was a miscommunication.
No, I was kind of expecting probing, but not in that direction.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It turns out that the abductee was doing the probing.
Not a lot of times does that happen.
Oh, how the turntables.
So after she leaves, Boaz was given back his clothes and taken on a tour of the spacecraft, and he tried to steal a clock-like device as proof of his encounter, but the aliens prevented him from doing so. They escorted him off the ship, and it flew off. Boaz discovered that 4 hours had passed since his departure. So this story first came to light in February of 1958 after Boaz contacted journalist Jose Martins, who had put out an ad seeking people with UFO experiences. So he didn't come forward with this story and tell a bunch of people this story just of his own whatever. So he had contacted the journalist instead of coming forward of his own volition, I guess, of like just telling people the story. Somebody was like, anybody ever been abducted? And he was like, sure, I have. Which is a little suspect. Boaz was able to recall every part of the abduction without hypnotic regression, which, from what I have understood, is atypical of alien abduction stories. Typically, you have to be in a more suggestible state. Not Boaz. He remembered everything, and like say earlier, like when he memorized those symbols, he was able to reproduce the symbols for researchers and investigators. But researcher Peter Rogerson doubted Boaz's claims, citing a similar story that was published in the November of 1957 issue of O Cruzeiro, which was a few months before Boaz came forward. So he claims that this happened in October, which would have been before that story was published, but he didn't actually tell anybody about it until February. Mm-hmm. So it's very possible he read it and then was like, yeah, but like mine happened in October and not in November.
And it happened for real.
Yeah. But but anyway, we still don't really know because Boaz, Boaz eventually he became a lawyer and he married and he had 4 children, 5 if you include the alien baby.
Probably.
But for the rest of his life, he defended his claims of alien abduction all the way up until his death in January of 1991. We have no way to refute it.
Except his last word was, psych.
Just kidding, bitches. But so that is the strange tale of alien abductee Antonio Villas Boas. I want to believe it's true. I want to believe it. Because a dude getting it on with a weird, with like, yelpy alien.
With a barking alien.
Makes me laugh so much. It's like something out of Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's like aliens who like try to figure out how humans speak, but really what they recorded was a dog, so they think that's how. It's like, I learned how to speak your language by listening to your inhabitants.
Your
and it was really just like whatever microphone they sent down landed on a dog pound or something like that.
But yeah, so that is my odd fucking story.
Wow.
So originally I was going to do...
That is an odd fucking story.
Ah, yeah! So, because originally I was looking into, I think it was the Hill abduction, which is the most famous one. But then I stumbled across this one, and I was like, this one's better.
That's pretty cool.
This is, I mean, the Hill abduction is weird if you've ever looked into it. But it's this one, I was like, as soon as it got to, and then a female alien came in, and I was like instantly erect, and I was like, this is the one, this is the story, right? I want to believe
You found the alien porn.
Right, yeah, there you go.
Alien
Rule
porn.
34.
It's like, man, it turns out my soulmate was from a different planet. How shitty is that?
Star-crossed lovers.
Literally.
So, Mike, I know that you told me what your story is, and I'm very excited to hear about it.
I was originally really disappointed because when you said the topic was aliens, I was like, great, I can talk about how great Ripley is, but that wasn't...
Yeah, for sure.
That wasn't the case.
Listen, I like Sigourney Weaver as much as the next person.
Guy, but there's just so many movies we could be talking about right now, but we're not talking about movies today.
No, that's a later topic.
That's later. So my topic for the day is Encounters with the Men in Black. Also,
Cool.
not the movie.
Not the movie.
Also disappointed to find out I couldn't do that. But anyways, Men in Black, the movie, is based on... the idea that there are, in fact, covert government agents that have a lot to do with covering up,
right?
Like alien, not limited to, but certainly mostly about alien things. Like literally anything confidential or top secret, the Men in Black could be involved. But it is
it's like
very
Area
commonly
51.
Yeah, but Area 51 is also very alien mythos related,
right?
So not the best example.
Well, yeah,
but So, anyways, yeah, just as a little aside for the Men in Black, just to describe who they are, and if I say this, maybe you guys have encountered them yourselves. Who knows?
Oh my God, I hope not.
Well, in popular culture, and this is straight from Wikipedia.
Nice.
The definition, just like
Shout out
the
to
page
Wikipedia.
Men in Black, there is surprisingly little, though.
Well, yeah, they cover it up as soon as it
after
happens.
like further thought on this subject, I was like, no, actually, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of stuff.
Unsurprisingly little.
Yeah, so my attitude quickly changed on the matter. So in popular culture and UFO conspiracy theories, the Men in Black are supposed men who dress in black suits who claim to be quasi-government agents who harass or threaten UFO witnesses to keep them quiet about what they've seen. It is sometimes implied that they also actually may be aliens themselves. Which
I've definitely read
maybe
stories
means
on that.
it's like if that's the case, it's like maybe they're not actually government agents, they're actually just aliens trying to cover up the fact that they exist.
Yeah.
But also there's also the possibility that they actually are aliens and still work for the government. That's also a possibility.
That's also true, yeah. Like the movie.
Aliens
Yeah,
have
like
jobs
the
too.
movie. Or like even in a sense where like the government doesn't know they're aliens. But now they work for
There
the
you
government.
go. Yeah.
There's so many possibilities here.
A bunch of aliens come to the government and they're like, hey, we want to start an alien task force. And they're like, alien task force? There's no aliens here. And all the aliens dressed as humans are like, haha, no, there's not.
No aliens here. Haha, trust me.
And that's our goal. No aliens.
You can, there are no aliens here, and you can thank us for that.
Yeah.
The term is also frequently used to describe mysterious men working for unknown organizations, so it's become a slightly more generic term than just specifically talking about aliens, like I mentioned before, as well as various branches of government allegedly designed to protect secrets or perform other strange activities.
Also a nickname for Johnny Cash, the Man in Black.
Yeah, the term now that's become more generic, the term is basically used to describe any unusual, threatening, or strangely behaved individual whose appearance on the scene can be linked in some fashion to a UFO sighting. Several alleged encounters of the Men in Black have been reported by UFO researchers and enthusiasts, and that is where I will get into in a moment. But there is actually a book out, like a semi-comic science fiction book called Men in Black by American author Lowell Cunningham. So yeah, that's a little series of stories and such that if you are so inclined, you can look up later. So I do have this article because stories about the Men in Black are kind of hard to find sometimes. So none of them are very long, but I have a number of them that I can talk about here, collected in this article on Thought Catalog. And these ones are like specifically ones I chose because they seem more readily verifiable than just like, because I mean, I got the entire idea off of this basically. I think it was off a Reddit post.
Okay.
But all those stories are like, I can't guarantee that those are actually even remotely true.
Yeah.
That literally could just be someone got bored and wrote a story one day. But these ones are ones that are like actually reported.
And I've read some very well written stories on Reddit where you're like, this is
and then it ends with Undertaker throwing mankind off Hell in the Cell.
Every time.
Every time.
Damn you, shitty morph.
Somebody would just go on the internet and tell lies?
You can't lie on the internet. I read that on the internet.
Well embellished non-truths, I think is the more important, the more accurate phrase. But yeah, these are the ones that are more like actually reported and verified and like documented cases of people claiming, because I mean on Reddit it's anonymous, but these are the ones where people actually have a name attached to that can be verified. Starting with Dr. Herbert Hopkins, who was a UFO consultant in Maine. One evening, he received a phone call from someone purporting to be an activist in the UFO community, asking him if he could visit Hopkins to discuss the case. Only minutes later, though, the man arrived. The man was wearing a black suit and black tie and had very unusual facial appearance, with no hair or eyebrows, and an extremely pale figure. Hopkins' dog began barking erratically the minute the man entered the home. After the bizarre visitor was finished questioning about the UFO case, the visit got even stranger. He informed Hopkins that there were 2 coins in Hopkins' pocket, which was correct, and asked him to remove one. Hopkins complied and held the coin, a shiny new penny, in the palm of his hand. The man in black told Hopkins to watch the coin closely. After a few moments, the coin took on a silvery appearance and then appeared to be going out of focus. It then began to fade and eventually disappeared altogether. The men in black informed Hopkins that the coin would never again be seen on this plane again. He then inquired as to whether Hopkins was familiar with alleged UFO abductee Barney Hill. Yeah.
Mentioned that a second ago.
Hopkins replied that he had never heard of Hill, but was under the impression that he had died in the not-too-distant past. The man in black informed Hopkins that was correct. Barney didn't have a heart, said the man in black, just like you no longer have a coin. It should be noted, though, that Barney Hill actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage. But the man in black then gently suggested that Hopkins destroy any material he had related to the UFO case. Hopkins, extremely shaken by the encounter, followed the advice of the man and burned all the files he had related to the case. While he had repeated phone troubles after, the phone company said his line had been tampered with. He never saw the man again.
Okay.
So that's one story. Where apparently a man in black who may or may not have been an alien can actually dissipate matter.
Yeah. That sounds pretty alien to me.
Another plane.
No hair, no eyebrows. It's pretty different.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So another story about Dr. Albert K. Bender, who was a well-written and extremely intelligent researcher who founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau.
Okay.
What a name for an organization.
What does that organization do exactly?
Well, they're a bureau.
They bureau flying saucers internationally.
Yeah. They fly saucers.
But like plates.
Across
like plates.
International waters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're just an aerial shipping company.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that makes sense, right?
That specialize in the little plates that you have for coffee cups and stuff.
Just like frisbee some saucers it's good.
All right. In 1955, his research was about to yield serious fruit as he prepared to unveil a paper that would prove the U.S. government had, to one degree or another, covered up proof of UFOs. He planned to publish his findings in the Space Review. That was until he was visited by the Men in Black.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is where I wish I had the flashlight and could put it under my chin and stuff.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Visited by, click, the Men in Black.
Burn.
Bender claims that 3 men dressed in all black visited him at his home and warned him against pursuing the topic of UFOs any further. The men left Bender scared for his life and immediately shut down all his research and the Flying Saucer Bureau. So no more shipping plates, guys.
How did he shut down the whole bureau?
He founded it, so like I guess he has that ability.
I think I misunderstood. I thought the Men in Black shut down the bureau, and I'm like, they killed those guys.
Those men are dead.
Those men are no longer on this plane.
And maybe probably women as well.
Yeah,
are dead. Many people who knew him claim that Bender was a changed man after the encounter. His later works were rambly, almost unreadable, and he seemed to live his life in constant anxiety and terror. Same. He he purported to still receive mysterious phone calls with nobody on the other end of the line until the end of his life in 2002. Also, next we have the Maury Island incident.
Okay.
Harold Dahl and his son were salvaging logs on a fishing boat when they spied 6 donut-shaped crafts flying in the air above them. The crafts dropped molten waste onto the lake, which allegedly kills Dahl's dog and injures his son. A few days later, after talking about the affairs with his boss and friends, he was visited by a mysterious man dressed in all black. The man urged him to not discuss the encounter. After long, he was also visited by several Air Force agents who were said to be on a mission to gather information, in air quotes. Dahl's story definitely got the attention of various law enforcement agencies in the United States, leading the FBI to write a report on the matter, which I do have a picture of said report, but a lot of the information is unsurprisingly redacted.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. And
everything but the articles and the pronouns.
Yeah, so if any listeners are really interested in finding this, go on Thought Catalog and search 9 freaky encounters with the real men in black, and you should be able to find this. And you can look at the actual report yourself if you feel so motivated.
Hell yeah.
Not long after the encounter with the man in black, Dahl claimed that the whole thing was a hoax, but recanted years after, having allegedly made the first confession under duress. So he recanted it, then he recanted the recant, and that's basically where he left off until.
So he's like, I saw aliens. And then he's like, JK LOL.
And then he's like, JK LOL. No, for real, I saw aliens.
JK LOL.
I for real saw aliens.
Yeah, but now that I'm on my deathbed, what are the men in black going to do to me?
This next story is also, it's part of a Men in Black encounter story, but also it's one of those, like, I don't know if you watch like top 5s or top 15s or stuff on YouTube. This picture was also included in like the most unexplained things to show up in pictures, or something like that. So this is the Solway Firth spaceman.
Okay. Yeah.
Jim Templeton was shocked to discover this a figure in the background of a photo of his daughter, where in the background it's just they're in the middle of a field and there's a spaceman right behind his daughter's head in the picture, which allegedly when the figure was not in the camera's view when he took the photo, and nobody had any idea where it came from. The film was verified as authentic by Kodak, and Templeton's story went public. Not long after, he was visited by 2 quote-unquote government agents who referred to themselves as Number 9 and Number 10.
Okay, kind of like Agent J and Agent K.
Yeah, only numbers. They demanded to see the site of the photo and questioned Templeton about the event. Are J and K the 9th and 10th letters of the alphabet?
I believe that they are, sir.
Bum, bum, bum.
I was just thinking that. Yeah. I was like, holy cow.
Holy shit. Illuminati confirmed. When Templeton told them he didn't see the figure personally, the men became angry and stormed out of the field, never to be seen again. Templeton was later contacted by 2 employees at a missile launch pad in Australia who claimed that they saw 2 figures that resembled the man in his daughter's photo on launch pad security footage. Apparently, the missiles at that site in Australia had been produced only 20 miles away from the field where Templeton took the photo. So yeah, that's basically into that story, which is a little interesting thing. That's almost a ghost story and an alien story. What if it's like
didn't they come up with a few years ago that they came up with a realistic explanation for that though, where it was basically like a double exposure.
Yeah, quantum phasing.
Yeah. There you go.
Spoilers for Ant-Man and the Wasp. So yeah, obviously that's what happened.
Interesting.
Yeah. So here is my next story entitled "Guns No Good Against Aliens."
Okay.
Paul Miller was returning home after a hunting trip when they saw a luminous disc in the sky. The disc landed in an empty field, and 2 humanoids emerged from the craft. Miller fired his gun at them and believed to have injured one when he fled down a rural road in his car. However, in that moment, he realized he had lost time. It was almost 3 hours later than when he had first encountered the craft. He shrugged it off and went back to his Air Force job the next day. However, upon entering work, he was immediately confronted by 3 men in black suits. They told him that they had his file. Despite having told nobody about the event, the men said they know all about it and mentioned that the encounter would best be forgotten. Which is interesting. That was like a preemptive move. It's like, yeah, I didn't even tell anyone about it yet. So, like...
Right.
Yeah. He's like, okay, then still don't do that.
Yeah, keep not telling anyone.
Keep not telling anyone and just forget it.
Yeah. We were never here.
A quote from Miller says, "They seem to know everything about me, where I worked, my name, and everything else." They also asked questions about his experiences as if they already knew the answers. Miller, terrified, did not come forward about his experience until years later. I have another one about a radio personality named Danny Gordon.
Okay.
Who became interested in a flurry of, how do you pronounce this, Wythe County UFO sightings?
Yeah.
Wythe.
Wythe.
Yeah. So, multiple people across the county had claimed to have seen bizarre objects in the sky, and Gordon decided to investigate. Gordon became obsessed with getting photos of the objects, including one time where an entire school bus of students saw the UFOs flying over a shopping mall as Gordon took photos. Eventually, Gordon snapped a few photos at extremely close range that allegedly verified they were not of this world. However, strange things began happening to Gordon. He received a phone call from a man who claimed to be ex-military and warned him that his research could cost him everything and urged him to stop for his family's sake. Gordon was also interviewed by 2 men in black suits who claimed to be working for a magazine publication. Not long after the interview, Gordon realized all his photos were missing. He contacted the magazine for information, and they claimed to have never heard of him, much less commissioned an article about him.
Ha!
Not long after, Gordon suffered a heart attack, and his doctor warned him that all the research and stress was jeopardizing his health. I think the doctor's in on it.
Gordon, man, it's a doctor in black.
Yeah, because after
comes
that,
in a black lab coat.
I knew something was wrong when he was wearing a black lab coat and a tie. Gordon, it worked because Gordon gave up the story, and he never bothered with it again.
Interesting.
Which is unfortunate, because that seems to have been, by all accounts and descriptions, the most solid evidence of UFOs existing,
right? Because
of the range at which he took the pictures. Yeah. Also, here's one where in this story, also in the article, so if you look this up, you can see this, is the only known picture of someone who claimed to be a government agent. So the only known picture. Okay. It's not even a great picture either, but it's the only time anyone who could be described as one of the men in black have been caught on camera.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
So UFO researcher Jack Robinson and his wife Mary began to experience extremely strange events as they pursued more alien and UFO related research. They would come home to find their house rummaged and looked through, and their UFO files disturbed. Mary also began to notice a strange man in a black suit and hat staring up at their apartment from the doorway, which is what the picture is of.
Oh, good.
Mary mentioned this activity to a friend who drove over and saw what she was talking about for himself. The friend, Tim Green Beckley, snapped a photo of the man, which is believed to be one of the most ironclad pieces of proof of the Men in Black's existence.
Do you ever... Okay, so when it comes to, alien stories and shit like this, you ever feel like when you talk about it, that you're being watched? Every time I talk about aliens, I feel like I'm being watched. You know what I mean? Like
right now.
Right now, I know that there's not a guy in a black suit behind me. But, I'm terrified to turn around because I just know that there's going to be, little eye holes cut through the wall or something, and a dude with, sunglasses and a black suit is going to be peering through them.
Yeah, we can always do another episode on ghosts.
Yeah, no, I got that one coming up. That one's in the chamber.
Ooh, call me for that one, please.
2 short stories left here. One is about Professor Peter, this last name, Rajowicz?
Yeah.
Rajowicz?
Sure.
It's definitely Eastern European of some sort. He claims that he was reading a UFO book in the library when a strange pale man wearing all black sat down next to him. The man began talking to the professor and asked him about his opinion on flying saucers. The professor replied that he wasn't super interested, and the man became agitated. He eventually left, leaving the professor extremely uncomfortable and anxious. He did not reveal his story until many years later when he finally gave a lecture on the subject. He remains convinced that it was a man in black official who confronted him in the library, and to this day is trying to find more people who have had similar experiences. So it's kind of...
He needs to read this list.
Do what? Yeah, he needs to read this list, and yeah, but like, some of them are dead, so I guess he can't.
Well, that's fair.
Unfortunately. And the last story, also probably the most high-profile one.
Okay.
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan
Aykroyd came forward with his story about how he was taping a show about the paranormal. He had stepped outside to take a phone call from Britney Spears, actually, who was asking him to appear on Saturday Night Live with her. When he noticed that a black Ford parked across the street. A tall man stepped out of the Ford and stared him down. Dan Aykroyd turned away for a moment and then turned back to find that the man in the car had completely vanished. After he finished his phone call, he returned to the studio to learn that his show had been canceled and he was ordered to stop filming immediately. Some doubt his claim, but Aykroyd says he knew what he saw and maintains that there was some kind of connection between these MIB and the end of his paranormal show.
Interesting.
I know. There's an interview with him on YouTube about it that you can watch.
Who's going to cancel a show on Dan frickin' Aykroyd?
Apparently, whatever network
It was probably Fox.
Was distributing the show.
Dude, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I did not know the Dan Aykroyd one, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I knew some of those. I didn't know all of them.
Yeah.
But I definitely did not realize that Dan Aykroyd had any kind of, outside of Ghostbusters, any kind of paranormal experiences.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Wow.
So, Sammy, you got a cool story for us.
Yeah. I've been very excited for this episode because I love aliens.
Oh, good. I couldn't tell from the alien shirt that you're currently wearing.
Well,
Man, you should have been the person in that first story then.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, wait.
Wait. That would have been a close encounter of the seventh kind, if that's true. Did you
Close
know
encounter of the 69th kind. Got it.
Hey.
Nailed it. Stuck the landing.
10 out of 10.
Because did you know close encounter of the seventh kind is if there is a...
Or a 6 out of 9? Is it?
Close encounter of the seventh kind is the creation of a human-alien hybrid by sexual reproduction.
I did not know it went beyond fourth kind because of that movie with Mia Jovovich. No, nobody saw that but me.
No, I know. I didn't see it, but I know what movie you're talking about.
It was okay.
Sixth kind is death of human or animal associated with a UFO.
Okay.
But that's not what my story is about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's just some fun facts I found.
Interesting facts.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Bonus
And how
fun facts
fun
for
those facts
listeners,
were.
not viewers.
I learned something today.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and I was thinking about aliens, and I'm like, I love aliens. I love aesthetically, like, you know, the space and, like, little green alien dude, image, and I kind of use that in some of my branding for my illustrations. Like usually on my Instagram and stuff, I have my picture as like a little alien version of me,
okay,
like wearing like a hat and jacket,
like the troll dolls from Toy Story. They're like the actual
the little green men.
Yeah, but I really aesthetically love aliens in space anyway, and I use a lot of that kind of symbolism of stars, and not symbolism, but like I use those like iconic stars and like aliens in my artwork and as some of my branding, where my icon on Instagram and stuff is like a little alien version of me. And I was wondering where that specific image of the little green man came from, because that's been used, you know, over and over again, like since early 1900s as the image of an alien that people are familiar with. And even though now like it's out of practice with like sci-fi movies and stuff to use that specific image of an alien, creative direction has changed a little bit, and that's usually what people use to ridicule the existence of aliens. Like, what, do you think there's a little green man? Like it sounds ridiculous because we're so used to it. But I was like, where did that come from? Like, when was like the first report of something like that. And I think the first thing that I could find, which was a longer time ago than I would have thought,
Okay.
in the 12th century.
Holy shit. All right. We're about to get medieval. Here we go.
This is some history for
doing
y'all
this with my
motherfuckers.
stories, don't I?
Yeah, you're taking us back.
I'm taking us back. 12th century in a town called Woolpit.
Sure. Okay, that doesn't sound made up at all.
Where's
Yeah,
do
it's
you know
in,
what country this is in?
England.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically in what was known as Suffolk.
Suffolk,
England?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Suffolk, England. And Woolpit.
Our listeners in the UK,
You probably know where this is.
let us know the geography that we don't know.
Yeah.
They'll help us.
Let's know the things we don't know. So during the 12th century in that town, it is said that 2 children of unusual skin color reportedly appeared in that village of Woolpit. And they looked pretty normal besides the fact that they had green skin and
Okay.
they had like unusual clothing that wasn't familiar to the people of the area, and they spoke in their own language that was not recognizable to anyone around. And at first, they would only eat raw broad beans. It was all they would eat. They refused everything else at first.
Okay.
Yeah. And eventually they learned to eat other foods and, according to what I found, lost that green color in their skin
Okay.
and became, I'm assuming, a more like natural human skin tone.
Right, instead of fucking green.
Yeah, instead of green, but
Maybe they were suffering from the plague?
who knows?
And this is
Does
just
the
how they
plague turn you
beat it
green?
with their immune systems.
No, I don't think it does, actually.
don't
Maybe it's
think so.
gangrene. That's green, right? It's in the name.
Kind
And
of.
then, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But
Any doctors out there who are listening,
any doctors.
tell us if gangrene is green.
But apparently it was a boy and a girl, and after a while the boy was sickly and eventually died, and the girl actually learned to speak English.
Okay.
And explained that she and her brother had come from a subterranean world inhabited by green people.
Okay.
Lizardman confirmed.
Yeah, so that's...
Like a whole other planet. But they lived underground.
Yeah.
Not like a race of subterranean
It says
earth
here,
dwellers.
it says Saint Martin's Land is what it's referred to as here.
St. Martin's Land.
Yeah, a subterranean world inhabited by green people. Yeah, apparently this specific account has been written about twice that I see here, and where there's been some controversy over whether it's actually like something that the people in the village believe actually happened, or if it's just a folktale.
Okay.
Which, if it is, it's probably one of...
Like, be
like,
good or
the
I'm going to
early
send you to
ones.
fucking St. Martin's Land.
I don't know about that. Man, that would be a threat. Be good or we're going to send you off the planet. Yeah, but, the story was praised as, like, great fantasy, but...
Right.
Yeah, like, if that's true... That's, like, one of probably the first, like...
The little green
encounters
men, yeah.
Of little green men, little green children. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard this story before. I was thinking,
That
like...
does sound familiar to me.
I was thinking it was going to be like, 19th century because like War of the Worlds. That's the era that I was thinking like we were going to get to. But like they weren't little green men in that. They were like
Big
weird
metal
tentacle
machines,
monsters. Well, the machines were the crafts.
Yeah, but you didn't really see the aliens.
And they were
for
also
most of the
cylinders in the book.
Cylinders?
Yeah. Well, I think the tripods came later.
They were Daleks.
Yeah.
Giant Daleks.
But that's fucking weird.
Yeah. And it says here on Wikipedia, because that's where I'm reading this, looking at currently.
They get a lot of use out of this fucking podcast.
Apparently, the world that they were from, everything was green, and that they don't know how they ended up in Woolpit. They just
They just
out in
were
their
there.
father's field, and then they were there.
Huh.
Yeah.
So it's also possible. I mean, possible in the sense that we're talking about potential aliens. It's also possible that they came from a parallel universe.
Could be.
That's ridiculous.
And apparently the girl...
But they lost their green skin color.
Yeah. So they just kind of like...
Maybe all those fucking beans they were eating.
So, like, broad bean is also known as fava bean. And actually, they're not poisonous to humans, because I was thinking some beans can be poisonous to humans if you don't cook them first.
Right. Which could turn you green.
Could possibly. But actually, apparently, there is favism, which is a deficiency in G6PD.
Yep.
And if they show favism, they could have yellowish skin.
Okay.
That's a little bit close to green.
So maybe they had favism, it turned them yellow, and then they had some other thing that turned them blue.
Yeah. Maybe they were just cold.
And then it made them look like, Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
I think that they're really just greedy
Could
little
be.
kids who didn't appreciate the tour of the chocolate factory that they were getting.
Also a possibility.
Yeah, lots of things could have been happening, but yeah, the house of the person that they were taken into, the little girl was employed there as a servant for many years, and then she eventually married somebody, according to.
And then just lived a normal human life.
Apparently,
but if she is an alien, and she comes from another world, and she married and had children.
That'd be a close encounter of the seventh kind.
That's a close encounter of the seventh kind.
It
but not
all
only that,
comes
that
full
means
circle.
that if... Oh my gosh. Okay, so that
What if
means,
she was actually the child conceived by the one dude from your story, but because they're aliens, they had flown too close to a black hole, so it really sent them back in time?
Sure.
Maybe she's trying to send the kids back to him.
I don't think you can
So, but
prove it
what
wrong.
I'm thinking though is so assuming that she's an actual honest to God space alien.
Yeah.
And she marries a human guy and then has half human, half alien children.
Yeah.
That means that there are people out there with alien DNA all mixed up in their DNA.
All mixed up. Have 0.00001%.
Well, still though, I mean, you could trace your ancestry back to Neptune.
That's a higher percentage of alien blood than I have. So
that's unless you're part of the lineage.
Well, I mean, by then it's so diluted that it's still a true statement to say.
Well, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, her name was Agnes. Agnes the alien.
Alien Agnes. That's fucking crazy.
I'm trying to find any record of children, but...
You gotta go to 23andMe.
Ancestry.com.
Yeah, there you go. So listeners, get on your Ancestry.com, your 23andMe, your Human Genome Project, and swab your cheek, send it in, see what percentage alien you are.
Yep.
Because somebody out there, if Agnes the alien is really an alien, then that means that someone out there is related to her and is part alien.
As long as they continue to reproduce.
So, yeah, well, that is true. Yeah, unless the bloodline died out, that would be tragic.
But that would, statistically speaking, be not as likely as having alien blood. I think.
Yeah. I think it's more likely that they're part alien.
Post bubonic plague, I don't think any entire bloodlines have been wiped out like that. Except maybe during the Holocaust.
Right.
That's the only time I can think of that something. Oh, and then maybe in Cold War era Russia.
Right. Yeah.
In China, but these were in England, so
Well, so maybe they made it.
Let's consider it's more localized to Europe than it is to the other places of mass genocide.
So that's nuts.
Yeah.
And that on a dour note.
Yeah, and on the note of genocide, I guess that's
We're gonna have to put a couple
I have a
disclaimers
question
in
for you,
here.
though.
Yes.
Have you ever had any encounters with aliens?
I have not.
Not that I can say I know for sure that I have a strong enough suspicion to believe so.
Right. I mean, I've seen weird lights in the sky.
Yeah, but nothing where I'm that's definitely alien. Something that could be explained. Because now that every asshole has a drone, a lot of those could probably be drones.
Yeah.
And if you were to actually see one, you're like, yeah, that's a drone. It's like it's definitely a drone, but it's a drone from aliens.
There was one time I was driving in a more rural area, and I did notice like there were like 3 lights up in the sky, right? And at first I thought it was all one big object, like, and that those were the points, but like they seemed to like shift, but they were like almost like synchronized swimming. You know what I mean? Like they like moved back and forth, but like never like intersected. It was always like, I don't know. It was that was weird. That's the closest that I ever came to thinking I saw an alien spacecraft of some kind. That and like this one time I did see like a real bright light that like when I like slowed down my car because I was driving that time too, and I noticed it just like zip off real fucking quick, like the drones that you can go to like Walmart or wherever you buy them and buy. There's no way that was what that was. It could have been a government drone because there was a military base not far from where I was driving. Yeah. But like,
I say that's the same where like anything where I saw that didn't look like a normal plane or something like that probably could have been experimental military technology because we're not that far away from Wright Pat.
Yeah.
Air Force Base.
We're
so
pretty
it's
close to Wright
entirely
Pat
possible.
Air Force Base for sure.
I'd have to see some weird ass looking plane to think it's an alien.
Yeah.
On that note, I am open to the idea that aliens exist.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I am too. I think statistically, like some of the alien abduction stories and stuff.
Statistically
that you hear,
speaking, in terms of the galaxy as a whole, it would be statistically more unlikely for there not to be other aliens out there.
Yeah.
Some people theorize that we might discover alien life by 2040.
Nice.
Those are rookie numbers. We got to boost those numbers.
Mm-hmm. Depends on.
I'm excited.
I want to meet aliens
prospect.
next year. All right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I want the film Men in Black to be a real thing.
To be next year, because
that is happening.
God knows I didn't get my fucking hoverboard or flying cars, so we got to start making up for this in the science department.
Hell yeah. Well, I guess so that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys for being on the show today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even though it wasn't about the movie Aliens,
every single time I talk aliens, it's always like
the movie
I always
Aliens.
get like just that little bit freaked out, like that aliens are like going to be outside the door when I open it or something.
Yeah.
Like Poe Dameron over there.
Yeah. So anyway, listeners, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at AntiFictionCast. You can always email us ideas for stories or themes at antifictioncast@gmail.com. You can send us hate mail too. I'll read it.
Interactions are interactions.
Yeah,
so,
interactions are interactions. I won't probably email you back if it's hate mail, but
unless it's really good.
Unless it's really good.
In which case I'll be like, dude, bravo.
If you make fun of things that you don't even know about me, I'll respond and just I will confirm all of them. But anyhow, thanks for tuning in, and tell all your friends about us, and only the good parts, and then we'll see you next week.
They can discover the bad parts themselves.
Yep.
Right, they'll listen. They'll find out the bad parts. Just tell them the good bits.
Real quick.
We'll see you next week.